With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. People's Action Movement leader Natasha Gray Brooks says Pam on journey of ascension in Independence Address. St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister in Independence Address, if we each do our small part, the sum will be a great leap. Trinidad and Tobago Senate passes Grandparents' Law. St. Lucia launches Climate Finance Unit to boost resilience and sustainable development. Internationally, U.S. blocks United Nations call for Gaza ceasefire for sixth time. Now, the details. People's Action Movement members turned out in their numbers for their annual Independence Ball at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort on September 18, 2025, under the theme Ascend, a Journey to New Heights. Leader of the People's Action Movement, Natasha Gray Brooks, gave remarks at the annual Independence Ball.
It is an absolute honor and privilege to be here tonight to celebrate our 42nd anniversary of independence and an extraordinary People's Action Movement. As I look around, a beautiful nostalgia washes over me. I was only 1 year old, but I was told all the stories, and I am feeling a shared history and collective dreams of all my forefathers. And tonight, our theme, Ascend, a journey to new heights, feels so perfect for this occasion. When I think of ascension, I don't just think of going up. I think of a journey. I think of a mountain climber. They start at the base, looking up at a peak that seems impossibly far away. There are steep inclines, loose rocks, and unexpected storms. But the mountain climbers don't just climb themselves, and they also don't just climb for themselves. They rely on their ropes, their team, and the knowledge passed down by those who came before them. Pam, the forefathers of Pam, they have been great mountain climbers.
The political leader reflected on the 60-year life of the People's Action Movement.
For 60 years, you have navigated every steep incline with resilience and grace. You face storms of challenge, not by turning back, but by finding new footing and a new path forward. And in true Pam fashion, you've always extended a hand to those who were climbing with you. You've shown the people of this nation what it is to truly ascend. We must lift others as we rise. Tonight, I want to speak to those of you who feel rejected when the rising cost of groceries make you feel like a failure. To those of you who feel victimized by an economy that has no space for your talent. To those who feel downtrodden by a system that seems designed to break them.
Gray Brooks used her speech at the ball to acknowledge the plight of the people and offered a message rooted in perseverance.
Some people say the economy is booming, but when you go in the supermarkets, the only thing is booming is the price of the chicken. When you go to the grocery store, sometimes you wonder if you need a second mortgage just to buy a pound of rice. However, we are not always going to cry. Sometimes we have to laugh to keep from crying. And tonight I say, we will not cry, we will rise. The challenges sometimes that we face seem insurmountable. Sometimes they say that we must simply accept things as they are. But I stand here tonight as a lawyer and as your future leader. that these challenges are not mountains too high to climb. They are simply mountains with a new peak to be conquered. And what will our journey to the top look like? With Pam, we will ascend to a nation where your future isn't a dead end. But there is a super highway of opportunity. We will ensure that everyone can be able to thrive in this society. Our streets will be safe again. This is not a fairy tale. This is our future, and it is within our reach. Some would have you believe that it is impossible, but some people, especially those at the helm right now, have forgotten how to climb. For 60 years, Pam has been charting the path, and tonight we are ready to lead the way to new heights.
The People's Action Movement leader ended her message with a promise to challenge the status quo by becoming the first female Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis in the next general elections. She shared that the road to greatness is not straight, but it is a journey she is prepared to undertake.
Let me tell you something about the journey to greatness. It's never a straight shot. It's full of unexpected twists, sudden turns and potholes you couldn't have seen coming. You can't control the road, but you can control your readiness for the ride. Your seatbelt isn't a restriction, it's a tool. It's a declaration that you prepared for the inevitable bumps. It's the moment you decide to secure your own success, to protect your dreams, and to commit to the long haul. Some people will choose not to buckle up. They'll start the journey full of confidence, only to be thrown off course by the first major jolt. They will fall, not because they weren't capable, but because they weren't ready. I'm saying get ready, because this is a journey for all of us. We are preparing for every challenge. We are building the resilience to withstand the turbulence. So as we stand at the threshold of this incredible journey, one that will be filled with victories and with setbacks, with moments of pure joy and moments of doubt, I want you to do one thing. Reach for that buckle. Click it into place. Feel that satisfying sound. That sound isn't just a click. It's a promise. It's the sound of your commitment. It's the sound of your courage. It's the sound of you saying, bring on the bumps. I'm ready for the ride of my life. And I want to wish everyone, the strong people and resilient people of St. Kitts and Nevis, happy 42nd anniversary of independence.
St. Kitts and Nevis celebrates 42 years of independence under the theme Perpetual Progress, a Sustainable Future in View, Independence 42. During an address to the nation, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drews, said that the nation's journey is much like a road built stone by stone, shaped by sacrifice and guided by vision.
Independence, as we know it, is more than a date on the calendar. It is a living journey. It is the steady progress of a people determined to stand tall, to walk their own road, and to build a future worthy of generations to come. Today, on the 42nd anniversary of independence, I stand on the newly reconstructed main road in St. Peter's with the wind at my back and the wider St. Kitts and Nevis in view. Beneath my feet is new asphalt, newly laid, smooth and sure. Around us, you can see the careful grading of verges and fresh road markings, the drains that carry flood waters safely to sea. the connecting sidewalks, and the lights that make the night safer for all. The roads we build, not just in St. Peter's, but throughout St. Kitts and Nevis across the network of rehabilitated and upgraded corridors that now move our people and our economy more safely and efficiently, are the routes by which independence becomes real in the lives of ordinary people. Every lane we restore, every culvert we replace, every blacktop we lay is a piece of that freedom, practical, measurable, and felt.
The Sustainable Island State Agenda, which the Drew-led administration is leading the charge on, was the focus of the address, where Dr. Drew touted the efforts being made in the Federation to achieve sustainability.
As our theme this year suggests, perpetual progress, a sustainable future in view. Independence is not a single leap from point A to point Z. It is a steady march, a trifle movement, and a road that continues beyond the horizon. But nation building is never only about the journey, as roads must lead somewhere. They must connect to a larger design, an economy that works, services that deliver, institutions that protect, and a shared vision that lifts us higher together.
The Prime Minister outlined various projects his administration has accomplished since taking office, which include the expansion of water infrastructure, road rehabilitation, renewable energy initiatives, and other capital projects. The Prime Minister acknowledged the impact of geopolitical challenges and climate change, but suggested that the Federation has the resolve to persevere.
Our Federation still faces the impact of unprecedented challenges, compounded largely by external factors. We feel the effects of increased costs of living triggered by imported inflation, as we are a small open economy. The vagaries of climate change leading to extreme weather events such as droughts, causing decreased availability of water, and the global geopolitical uncertainties of our time. Yet we face them not with fear, but with a strong resolve. Because we know who we are. We are people who have endured, a people who have prevailed. My brothers and sisters, independence calls us to unite. It calls us to look beyond what divides us and to focus on what binds us. No road can be built if each stone resists the other. No house can stand if each wall pushes against the other. And no nation can endure if each citizen sees him or herself separate from the whole. Together we are stronger. Together we are safer. Together we are freer. 42 years may seem short in the life of nations, but in those 4 decades we have traveled far. From a young nation finding its footing to a confident federation charting its future, St. Kitts and Nevis has proven that progress is possible. And with determination and commitment, we can walk our own road and build our own destiny. And yet, my fellow citizens, independence is never finished. It is the responsibility of each new generation. As we look toward the horizon, let us imagine and continue to reimagine a St. Kitts and Nevis of tomorrow. A nation where we define for ourselves who we are. A nation where every child, regardless of background, has the right and opportunity to learn, to achieve, and to contribute. A nation where families live securely in homes that are safe from storms and affordable to maintain. A nation where our streets and communities are free of violence and our young people see opportunities rather than despair. A nation where we harness the sun, the wind, the sea, and the volcano to power our homes, our schools, and our industries. A nation that welcomes investment, nurtures creativity, and shares prosperity across every village and every parish. This is the road we must walk together.
With incomplete projects and major ones not yet started, the Prime Minister expressed that mistakes are inevitable, but the work continues.
So as we celebrate this 42nd anniversary of our independence, we must also acknowledge that not every road is yet paved, not every project is yet complete, and not every community feels the full measure of peace and prosperity we seek. As a government, we do not deny this, we face it. But today we can say with pride and without boasting that the Federation is moving forward and moving forward together. This road in St. Peter's does not stand alone. It is part of a system. The hospital and school under constructions are not isolated buildings. They are part of a system. The energy and water projects, the digital reforms, the housing and the social programs, the youth initiatives and the enterprise support, each is a piece of a system. And when a system is coherent, progress compounds, and it is only then that independence is fully realized. So when we ask ourselves, what does it mean to be truly free after 42 years? It means a child can walk in mansion, ride along a safe lit roadway to a modern school, study on an electronic device connected to reliable broadband, participate in an after-school program that keeps them engaged and safe, access preventive health care at a strong community clinic, and then return home to a dry, secure, energy-efficient house powered partly by the sun. It means a farmer in Keyon can irrigate more reliably, get an affordable loan to upgrade equipment, transport fresh produce along a good road to a market, and settle a payment instantly with digital tools. It means a nurse at JNF can use modern diagnostics to treat patients at home rather than see them flown abroad. It means a new graduate from St. Kitts and Nevis can choose to stay because staying offers a life of dignity, growth, and hope. This is independence that breathes. This is independence you can drive upon, learn upon, build upon, and depend upon. 42 years on, we still have mistakes to avoid and lessons to apply. As such, your government is committed to prudent economic management that protects our stability, to transparency and accountability, to consultation and collaboration, to the steady, disciplined execution that turns plans into projects and projects into progress. We will remain bold and careful, bold enough to change what must be changed, and careful enough to secure what must be secured. And we will measure our work not by headlines, but by outcomes.
The Prime Minister concluded by encouraging the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, both at home and abroad, not to be distracted by doubt or defeated by division, but to see every road as a pathway to opportunities and advancement. In regional news, Trinidad and Tobago Senate passes Grandparents' Law, Triple T Live Online reports.
The Constitution Amendment Bill 2025 passed in the Senate with 16 votes for, 13 against, and 1 abstention. The opposition and independent benches did not support the legislation, with the exception of a temporary independent senator, Wesley Gibbings, who voted with the government bench. The bill, also known as the Grandparent Law, seeks to amend the Constitution to allow individuals to become citizens of Trinidad and Tobago if their grandparent was a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago at the time of their birth. Attorney General John Jeremy, responding to concerns raised by the opposition, argued it was mischievous to imply the amendment can lead to voter padding.
Wrong to say that we are looking at the Constitution, amending the Constitution every day. That's wrong. Wrong to say that the bill before us seeks to have, has anything to do with elections or benefits or anything of that nature. Wrong to say that there are no international benchmarks.
The Attorney General assured the President would not be asked to proclaim the bill until appropriate regulations are made to Form 5, the General Declaration form required by immigration for individuals entering the country. He further explained the election laws in Trinidad and Tobago would not allow for individuals to participate in constituency elections just through acquiring citizenship.
Voted. And there's no way that you could vote in Washington and where will you go to cast that ballot? At the High Commission? They lock you up. So, and how would you get the vote from Washington to Port of Spain? Or if you're in England, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the Trinidad High Commission? They'll lock you up. I used to be there. And I mean, It's preposterous.
St. Lucia launches climate finance unit to boost resilience and sustainable development. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
Enhancing climate resilience was the central theme of the launch event. Stakeholders highlighted the unique challenges faced by small island developing states and emphasized the urgency of creating a dedicated funding mechanism to support climate resilience initiatives. With weather patterns becoming increasingly unpredictable, especially across the Caribbean, preparation for extreme and diverse weather events was named a top priority. Ferruccio Santetti, Regional Director for the Global Green Growth Institute, underscored the need for Latin America and the Caribbean to strengthen their resilience ahead of accelerating global climate impacts.
Yeah, so very much focus on creating jobs, on improving access to essential services. And we do this by working with our counterparts in strengthening institutional capacities, in developing policies and strategies that advance the climate agenda, but most of all, really accelerating climate finance mobilization, right? So for us today is really exciting. The CFU sets a very strong foundation.
Santetti noted that raw data will be collected from communities most affected by natural disasters, particularly those heavily reliant on agriculture. He stressed that building resilience for food security is critical to ensuring the island's survival when imports are disrupted. Imran Williams, Director of Finance, reflected on the high cost of past rebuilding efforts and laid out steps to make future recovery efforts less burdensome on the nation's economy.
Resilience is not optional, it is essential in everything that we do. And resilience requires resources, planning, and most importantly, coordination. Hence, you would have seen all the partners that came to bear to make this unit happen. The CFU represents a bold and necessary step to ensure St. Lucia can more effectively access, manage, and account for the financing required to adapt to and also deal with the mitigation activities.
Williams emphasized that the CFU's partnership with the Department of Sustainable Development will enable swift execution of key sustainable development goals. He thanked stakeholders for their support and expressed hope that initiatives will be implemented effectively from day one. Minister within the Ministry of Finance, WINN Girard, spoke on the importance of maintaining open dialogue to ensure policies and programs under the CFU are implemented effectively.
Too often, projects were implemented in isolation. Once funding ended, results faded, and opportunities were lost. We were leaving resources on the table, while exposure to climate risks grew. We needed transformational change, a single platform to coordinate resources, align financing with national priorities, and embed climate action into the national planning system. That is why Cabinet approved the CFU within the Department of Finance.
The CFU will operate as a priority project for the first 3 years under the leadership of the Director of Finance. During this period, the unit will design a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation plan to uphold the good governance, accountability, and transparency, while ensuring that tangible results reach communities that need them most. The launch was held at the Finance Administrative Center on September 18, 2025. For the DBS News World, Manasseh Stanislas reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
The US has vetoed a draft United Nations Security Council resolution demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, along with increased humanitarian access. All other members voted in favor of the resolution, which also demanded the unconditional release of all Israeli hostages being held by Hamas and other groups. But Washington said the resolution drew what they called a dangerous false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. It comes as Israeli tanks and troops continue their advance on Gaza City. The military said they were expanding their operations without giving any details about their movements. But international concern about the Israeli offensive is growing. Earlier, a UN official described the situation in Gaza City as nothing short of cataclysmic. At the United Nations, an American official explained the US decision to veto the resolution, claiming it wrongly legitimized false narratives benefiting Hamas.
U.S. opposition to this resolution will come as no surprise. It fails to condemn Hamas or recognize Israel's right to defend itself, and it wrongly legitimizes the false narratives benefiting Hamas, which have sadly found currency in this council.
It was the 6th time the US had cast a veto in the Security Council over the war in Gaza. This was the response of some of the other participants.
L'extension et l'intensification.
The extension and intensification of the Israeli offensive in downtown Gaza has already caused the forced displacement of 300,000 people. France reiterates its opposition to any plan of occupation for the Gaza Strip and the forced displacement of its population. It calls on Israel to put an end to this destructive campaign.
We need a ceasefire more than ever. And yet Israel's reckless expansion of its military operation takes us further away from a deal which could bring the hostages home and end the suffering in Gaza.
China is deeply disappointed by the result of today's vote. Time and again, the Security Council has attempted to take action only to be forcefully blocked by the United States. We cannot help but ask how many more innocent lives must be lost before a ceasefire can be achieved in Gaza.
Meanwhile, thousands of Palestinians are continuing to be displaced by the Israeli bombardment of Gaza City. Many are fleeing south towards Al-Mawasi, an Israel-designated humanitarian area. But the region is already overcrowded and new arrivals say the conditions are dire.
We were living in our home under God's protection. Then, out of nowhere, the house next to ours got hit and completely collapsed. Our own house was damaged and destroyed along with it. We left without even a bag of clothes. Nothing. Our home, our life, everything we've been building for years, it's all gone. Israel told us to evacuate to humanitarian zones. We thought these humanitarian areas they talked about would have water, shelter, tents. And now we're out here on the streets, living in conditions so bad even an animal couldn't survive them. It's not right. We're living under cloth and sheets. When winter comes tomorrow, it will flood us, flood our lives. My younger son started stuttering from fear, from what he's seen. He's always tense, always scared. He's gotten so weak. There's barely any food, no fuel, no utensils. We're only holding on by the grace of God, waiting for the moment when the bombing hits us like it's hit others.
James Jackson is a legal journalist and host of the Mad in Germany podcast. He joins us from Berlin. Good to see you, James. So, in addition to what we've just heard, a group of lawyers, we know, is set to announce a criminal complaint against 11 members of the German government and certain arms companies for arms sales and deliveries to Israel. Can you explain what laws you think Germany may have broken here?
I mean, the legal battle for Germany's support for Israel didn't start today. It started last year in the International Court of Justice when Nicaragua brought a case against Germany for supporting genocide, which was concurrent to the South Africa's ICJ case, which Germany actually diplomatically protected Israel and during. So this has been a long-running procedure, but ultimately the lawyers today who are linked to the European Legal Support Centre have argued that Germany, by supporting Israel through arms deliveries, is aiding them with committing war crimes, including genocide. So on that list of the criminal complaint, which they've passed over to the state prosecutors, that as well as 10 or 9 senior politicians, including the current Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, the former Chancellor, and heads of the Greens, as well as the Conservative CDU, they have also included German CEOs, including from Rolls-Royce, the German side of Rolls-Royce, who create the engines for the Merkava tanks, which are currently being deployed by Israel in Gaza City in their assault on Gaza City, as well as Renk, who create transmissions for Israel and who have indicated recently that they might move to the US to avoid this weapons embargo, partial future weapons embargo brought in by Chancellor Merz 6 weeks ago.
And James, of course, this comes in the wake of the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Palestine that ruled Israel had committed at least 4 acts of genocide out of the possible 5 in Gaza. These aren't yet legal findings, but we know that they are extremely authoritative and very rigorously investigated. Are European governments and companies, you think, concerned? They're now staring the possibility of legal liability for supporting Israel's war criminals with arms and equipment.
Yes, I absolutely think that the legal route is one which is going to be putting a lot more pressure on Israel, on Israel's allies in the German government, as well as in German companies, than perhaps protests on the street, although that shows public pressure and public support for action, of course. But it was widely reported that last year, when Nicaragua brought Germany to trial, even though that wasn't very successful, it really started to make figures in the German government worried. And at that point, they actually did quietly start rejecting arms approvals for Israel. But then political pressure from within the country, from the country's right and its very strong pro-Israel lobby, came and pushed them in the other direction. So Friedrich Merz took a step which partially embargoed future weapons deliveries to Israel, weapons approvals. But of course, as many of my colleagues have pointed out, they are still delivering weapons which can be used, but they've just said that they aren't going to cancel them. Of course, Germany, when Jamal Khashoggi was killed, they completely stopped all weapons. So the question is, why is it that one journalist who was killed is worth stopping completely, whereas with Israel, which has killed over 200 journalists and is committing 4 out of 5 genocidal points, according to the new UN Commission, that isn't enough to completely stop all weapons deliveries and bring sanctions. Germany actually is the main blocker of sanctions at the EU, and it's one of Israel's closest diplomatic, military, and also economic allies in the bloc. So the question is, what will it take to start bringing in real changes that could actually force Israel to stop committing these war crimes?
Well, it's a huge question, isn't it? I mean, let me focus on some of the details in that UN report, because you can read it 100 times and not fail to be shocked. It says they shot and killed civilians, some of whom, including children, were holding makeshift white flags. Some children, including toddlers, were shot in the head by snipers. I mean, the UN Commission said that its ongoing work will be to establish and now name parties as co-conspirators or being complicit in genocide. Do you believe Germany can be regarded at best complicit, at worst a co-conspirator?
Germany is definitely complicit in genocide. And in fact, one of those snipers you just mentioned, it turns out, was Daniel Gantz from Munich. And recently there were charges brought against him, not by the state prosecutor, but due to a group of media institutions investigating, proving who he was, proving that he shot an entire family or was part of a sniper team that did so. So there's been a real delusion within Germany that Israel is capable of these things. The public sphere and the media, particularly the private media with the Axel Springer media group, is vociferously pro-Israel and refuses to countenance that Israel is clearly committing these war crimes. I think Friedrich Merz was actually asked yesterday if he accepted the findings while on a trip to Spain of the UN Commission, and he just said, we think that bad things are happening, but we don't think it's a genocide. And of course, many times they point to their own horrific history of committing genocide, primarily against the Jews of Europe during World War II, to say, hands up, we're not going to say this is a genocide. But what kind of reckoning with your own past is that, if committing one genocide means that you forbid yourself from recognizing a current one and are actively involved through weapons supplies, through diplomatic support, through economic support, and blocking real sanctions that could bring this war to an end?
Commander of all she surveys, Adenech Abebe is on a nighttime inspection tour of the latest area of Addis Ababa to be transformed. This area was a slum in the centre of the city. Now riverside cycle paths cut through manicured lawns.
On one hand, we had to protect the city's heritage and iconic landmarks. On the other, we needed to renew rundown areas, relocate residents, and create new facilities, all of which was extremely difficult. What excites me the most is seeing lives transformed. People who once lived in slum areas are now in clean, safe homes with good facilities.
Daylight reveals the scale of the project. Every corner of this sprawling city of 6 million people has been, is being, or will be remodeled. New parks are built on the flattened informal homes of thousands of city centre residents. Many were given no choice but to move here, a 30-minute drive to a new development on the outskirts of the city. These new flats are better equipped than the shacks, but many here complain of a sense of isolation.
In our original home, we had a good social life because our house was in the city centre, where we could easily find everything we needed nearby. Here, we have to rebuild our social life from the beginning.
The home they gave us is better compared to our previous one, but many people here don't have jobs. There's no health center, and we also lack proper transportation. For people like me, stroke patients, diabetics, it costs nearly $30 for a round trip to the nearest hospital. We urgently need a solution to this problem.
Mayor Ababe is unrepentant. She says the redevelopment is people-centred.
Of course, in any country, such development projects couldn't be done without difficulties. If we need change, then we should have to make sacrifices. Even we as leaders often work in difficult conditions without sleep, but we're determined to bring transformation to our country.
That Addis is being transformed so quickly is partly due to the fact that this is a city where, if anyone did have any concerns, they keep them to themselves. US-based Freedom House says Ethiopians are afraid to comment on sensitive subjects because the government cracks down on opposing views. Not much is allowed to get in the way of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's desire to turn this city into a showcase to attract desperately needed foreign investment. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera, Addis Ababa.
Rate cuts, record market caps, and mega investment deals. This is the week in numbers. 1/4 of a point was the widely expected interest rate cut from the US Federal Reserve. The announcement from Fed Chair Jerome Powell came alongside the release of projections for 2 more 1/4 percentage point reductions anticipated this year. It indicates officials are now more concerned about weakening growth and small increases in non-farm payrolls.
What's different now is that you see a very different picture of the risks to the labor market. You've seen, we were looking at 150,000 jobs a month at the time of the last meeting, and now we see the revisions and we see the new numbers. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on payroll job creation, but it's just one of the things that suggests that the labor market is really cooling off.
$3 trillion was the market capitalization hit by Google parent Alphabet. It's riding on renewed optimism around AI, plus a favourable antitrust ruling. The company's shares have rallied roughly 1/3 so far this year, the best performer among the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks. $294,000 is what Chinese AI developer DeepSeek said it spent on training its R1 model. That's much lower than figures reported for US rivals. The news is likely to reignite debate over Beijing's place in the race to develop AI. $5 billion is what Nvidia is to invest in Intel, throwing its weight behind the struggling US chipmaker. The deal will make Nvidia one of Intel's largest shareholders, giving it roughly 4% or more of the company after new shares are issued to complete the deal. And $1 billion worth of Tesla shares were bought by CEO Elon Musk, according to a regulatory filing. It prompted the company's shares to gain as much as 7.5% on Monday and reinforces Musk's push for greater control over the company as it races to meet its ambitious targets on robotaxis, AI and robotics.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: People's Action Movement leader Natasha Crape Brooks says Pam on journey of ascension in Independence Address. St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister in Independence Address: if we each do our small part, the sum will be a great leap. Trinidad and Tobago Senate passes Grandparents' Law. St. Lucia launches Climate Finance Unit to boost resilience and sustainable development. Internationally, U.S. blocks United Nations call for Gaza ceasefire for 6th time. Thank you for listening.